Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
hello guys. How are you doing?
Good. How about you?
I can't complain. I'm in lovely Barcelona, so it's an amazing
You
start of
staying
the
down there?
weekend. Yeah, no, I mean, I left before the snowstorm in Seattle, so hopefully you guys enjoy the snow for me.
Oh, thankfully, I don't have to worry about those types of hills. Well, the world knows who Brian, Kyle, and Danny, our awesome ASL interpreter down there, are. Eamon, what do you do? Who are you? Why are you
Yeah.
here?
Well, I mean, I'm here actually to introduce AWS Telco Network Builder, but I'm a solution architect, part of the EC2 Edge product team, mainly focusing on everything edge automation and network management.
What would you
And
say
today,
is so? Like,
yep.
so I'm just gonna stop you there because we always hear like edge computing, edge automation. What is it that you focus on when it comes to the edge? And if you had to give me like a 15-second elevator pitch on what is edge, what would you say that is?
Right. So Edge within the context of AWS is all our capability that bring the ability to run workload closer to the customer, right? So through the outpost, through the local zone. So the intent is bring the compute closer to where the customer is. So then you can have like applications that are highly demanding, such as a hologram, connected car, and so on. So everything that is closer to the edge, think about it closer to the customer.
Awesome. Thank you for unpacking that for me, or as Brian would say, double clicking on that for us. So with AWS Telco Network Builder, what is it that it's solving for consumers, customers, builders?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Telco Network Builder, really freshly off the press, the service that we launched roughly 3 or 4 days ago. So, it's addressing the complexity and the problematic that the CSPs, right, the communication service providers, so the likes of Orange, Telefonica Germany, the Verizon of this world, the Dish of this world. So, it's to help them actually run workload that is specific to a network on AWS. So, TNB or Telco Network Builder, it will automate that ingestion of those network function, all those components that you need to run a network, to run a 5G network or any type of network ultimately into AWS infrastructure with the minimal impact and as simply as possible. So that's what Telco Network Builder helps our customer with.
And you
Sounds super
said that
cool.
the service was just released 3 days ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one, congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Two, this is probably like the first time a lot of us are hearing about this. So that's really exciting too.
Yeah.
No, it is. I mean, it's a new service. We've been working with partners and customer for the last few months as well, and we have actually a very nice demo at MWC. And I'm certainly encouraging anyone in Barcelona to come and say hi. I think it will be very nice to see an automation of what we call an end-to-end orchestration of an entire network, but also the edge application. So certainly looking to get the feedback from everyone here at Barcelona.
Sounds like a very interesting feature. And I like the rest of this audience is probably asking the same thing, is how does this work? Essentially.
Well, let's go through it. Actually, what I want to do, part of today, is really show you how Telco Network Builder works and how easy it is. So we're going to use mainly the AWS console. So I'll just explain how we actually ingest network function, what a network function is, how do we define a network, or what's the recipe to actually instantiate a network on AWS, and how we manage that network on AWS. And together, we're actually going to, on a few clicks, instantiate an actual 5G core network, and we'll see how relatively simple I think it is.
I feel like we're all about to hop onto a telecommunications ride, and this is very
Uh,
exciting.
Telco is it's the week of telco, right? So it's the whole world bleed telecommunication this week so in Barcelona, but also hopefully everywhere else. Everything that we can do through the GUI, we can also do via API, and we can also do via CLI, and it's also available via SDKs. So the cool thing about Telco Network Builder, it helps the customer even use their existing system, but also help them build on top of Telco Network Builder, right? So it's not just a point where you stop in Telco Network Builder. It's really something that enables them to continue to innovate, so they can actually have new features, new services faster for their end customers. And also they remove all the complexity and all the operational inefficiency that they have to manage like multiple networks coming from different vendors and so on, right? So we help them increase the operational efficiency. And by increasing the operational efficiency, at the end of the day, they help their end customers because there's features that are available much faster. So if we look at Telco Network Builder, can you just confirm that you're able to see the screen?
We can. The
Perfect.
work from home bingo card pile has been filled. We can see your slide.
Brilliant, brilliant. So AWS Telco Network Builder is available under the management and governance. So if you click on management and governance, you would be able to see AWS Telco Network Builder. And this will be the landing page. So that's the main landing page that a customer will see if they don't want to use the service. There's a couple items that I want to highlight. So there is a dashboard within Telco Network Builder that give you a view of what the customer or what you're using the service for. What are the network that you're deploying? What are the network function that you have available? What are the network service? What are the network definition that you have? And then whether they're successful or failing, so you can drill down what's failing and what's succeeding, and look at the network function that are part of one network that you deployed and built. So let's have a quick look at the dashboard. So in this dashboard, what it tells me that I have to find one network that could be, for example, a 5G core running in New York City, or one that is running in Madrid, or one that is running in Paris. And then I have 10 network function. So Network Builder has a function catalog, which is helping me ingest the network function from different ISVs. And then I have one network defined or one network package that is defined. And the network package ultimately is a recipe that say, hey, I want to install and I want to manage 5 or 6 network function. I want to deploy it on AWS, and I want to deploy them on a given infrastructure. Yeah, go ahead.
What is so I see like networks, that's kind of self-explanatory. What about like function packages and network packages? What do those really consist of?
Absolutely. So let's go on the function package. So here, let's look at the function catalog. So in TNB, I can ingest different network functions. So the network function are component of a telco network. So they're packaged in a certain format. So it's really ultimately a zip file. It's a CSAR file. So it's a YAML file and Helm chart. So you package them into a zip file and you ingest that into Telco Network Builder. In the realm of CSPs and telecommunication, whenever we say network function, it ultimately that component that do X in the network. So it could be even just a router, right? So for example, a virtual router, it's routing, but you can have, how do you install that router? How do you define the path to manage the lifecycle of that router, for example, on AWS infrastructure? How do you upgrade the infrastructure? How do you update the software? So that's the network function is ultimately all those artifacts.
That's cool. So the function is actually like what it is doing within the network itself.
Exactly.
There, simplify and say router, switch, hub.
Let's say, like, to take a very simplification, absolutely. But then when you start looking at the traditional telco network, like if you want to run, for example, 5G network, you have like all kind of network functions. You're going to have something for signaling. You're going to have something for user data. You're going to have maybe some radio access component as well. So all those components for network function, the Telco Network Builder help you instantiate and also manage the lifecycle management operation on AWS. And by lifecycle management operation, it's actually that deployment on AWS, updating the infrastructure when you need to update the infrastructure. For example, you want to go from one Kubernetes version to another, or if you have a new version of the software. For example, the ISV that provide that network function has a new version, right? So for example, right now in 23, maybe in Q2 of 23, there'll be a new software package that gives new features. So you will take that new version of that network function, and Telco Network Builder can help you update that in an automated manner and have a process that help you manage throughout the life of your network deployment.
Too cool. So is that why sometimes our phones will say, network update or network settings updated?
Not really. So it's a completely different world. But
I'm trying to understand your world better.
Hey, no. I mean, that's a completely different world. But see it here is really that underlying infrastructure that helps you make that call. So for your phone to work, there's like a lot of complex system. And what we do is we simplify that, right? So we're bringing that simplicity where we're providing them with the hooks into AWS infrastructure, so it's easy for them to run those networks. So it's simple, easier to manage, easier to operate.
It's running. Oh, we have a question.
Not necessarily a question. I feel like this is just kind of a what do they call it?
That's cool.
They're like a yes, this is awesome.
We're really excited. Actually, we've been hearing quite a lot from our customers, from partners, and so on. And I think it's quite exciting. But we're also really excited to see how people will use it and how it will grow with the industry. But that's great.
Yeah, well, I think I found some interesting about this is like the way that it's built, it looks like it integrates into other AWS services, right? Because you're running these networks and you're going to need these other services like management and governance. You're going to need maybe some Lambda functions or something like that to do something cool. And, it kind of lends itself in that direction. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and what you kind of see your customers using this combined with other services?
No, absolutely. So if I can hold on your question for a second, because I still owe you an answer on network, what a network package is, and then I'll bridge it back on how you can also integrate with the rest of the AWS services. So the network package, it's really just where the customer will define the network. I'm just going to show in essence the YAML file. At the minimum, it's just one file that has the description of the network function that they want to deploy, but also a definition of the infrastructure in a language that the customer, the communication service provider, and the telco software vendor understand. Right, so this is really Tosca, or Topology and Orchestration Specification Cloud Application format, something that the customer knows. We're basically bringing them that ability to use something they know to define AWS resources. So that network package, just to give you the answer, so it's something that you can create templates of. So when I want to deploy a network in New York, if I'm customer XYZ, and I want to also deploy that network in LA, chances are it's exactly the same recipe that I need to apply in New York, and then I need to apply in LA with some differences and some small modification of the configuration as well. Well, with the Telco Network Builder and the network package concept, we also have the ability to templatize that. So they can actually just reuse the same recipe, but make it even easier. So that's just to address that question, Brian. And then in regard to the integration with the rest of the AWS service, it's actually a pain point that a lot of our customers were giving us when we started building Telco Network Builder. A lot of our customers were telling us, yes, there's complexity, simplify it for us. We want to operate on the cloud in an easy manner. We have those challenges, help us with those challenges. But one of the challenges was regarding the CI/CD processes. And with an AWS, obviously, with Telco Network Builder, it's easy to integrate with the CI/CD tools, right? So you can have your own pipeline to actually ingest network function, ingest all the software images, all the configuration that you have that are specific for a given customer, but also what you're receiving from your software vendor, change them in a certain way, and then have that updated automatically. So then you can have task and have step that are taken in an automatic manner with Telco Network Builder. It could be something as just an update, right? So our customer had been asking for that, and Telco Network Builder integrate fairly well with obviously the AWS DevOps tool.
That's really cool. And I say that for multiple reasons, not just because, well, it's really cool, but more customers that I work with, especially in like the security point of view, is, how can they simplify deployments, but also remove humans from having to need to access the AWS environment, but just deploy everything as code. And that really aids for like disaster recovery, business continuity planning too. And so the fact that they're able to use their, existing tooling to be able to deploy to this just shows that there's many scenarios where they're able to do that too. But then I'm sure there's also configuration checks and best practices that may come out, more requirements that an organization may have for these types of deployments too.
No, and I'll add a little bit to that actually, Cal, because there's a few things that Telco Network Builder does. It also, like I've showed those recipe, but there's also a lifecycle hook integration as part of the way you define your network package or function package. So that gives the ability for a customer to adapt the DevOps practice directly within the Telco Network Builder automation flow. So they can do their own little thing, like something like when I want to instantiate a network, I want to update an inventory system, for example. So it's really cool because a customer can actually run their own set of script as an environment as part of the automation flow for, let's say, instantiating a network.
Now, Eamon, I'll be honest. So it wasn't until this week learning more and more about telecommunications and meeting you and the folks that are doing integrated private wireless that I started learning terms about, telecommunications. If someone wanted to be able to look at like a glossary of definitions and be able to compare them to something, say, similar to something we'd have a mental model of, say like routers, switches, hubs, firewalls, etc. Is there any resources that you could point us to, or something that we might have to reference?
I invite you to go through the user guide. So the Telco Network Builder user guide has a section that describes a little bit what the network functions are, what the network package are, also how it fits within an overall automation flow.
Awesome.
So that provide a bit of an introduction to at least the telco world. There is additional item, I think, has a common feed. Maybe we can share additional link, but as a starting point, the user guide will be helpful.
Too cool. So that's nice to know that there's like a glossary of functions there to kind of pair to what they do. Thank you for that.
Do you guys want to see how simple it is to actually create a network? So how do you feel about that?
We definitely have time to do that. So let's do that.
Brilliant. So I already have the ingestion of the network function, but just to really show it, it's just a click. You create function, you choose the file, you click next, and that will upload your network function into the function catalog. You do the exact same thing for the network package, right? All of that also could be done with external system via REST API or through SDKs. So we also have integration with partners, and we're demonstrating that here at NWC. So now I want to, let's say, deploy a 5G core network in Paris. I have that template. All I do is I click create network instance, and let's say this is going to be
no big deal, just deploying a 5G network in Paris.
Well,
it's like I do this all the time.
That's what we want to do, right? So, and that's all. This create the definition now. So we have that that network being instantiated, or not not defined. I have this definition now that I am ready to instantiate whenever I want, because a customer may want to carry traffic 2 months from now, or maybe a week from now. So as they're building the network, or how they're shrinking the network, or how they're modifying the network in different shape or form. So let's instantiate it. I said earlier, there's the override, right? So we can make some parameters. So if I deploy in Paris, and maybe I want to deploy in Nice, I want to change the way the VPCR, I want to change my subnetting, maybe I have different IP ranges. So all of that could be changed as a set of input. But let's keep the default one for now. And we click instantiate, and the magic will happen in the background. So Telco Network Builder is going to create all the underlying infrastructure. It's going to deploy all those network functions. So that AMF, that UPF, UDM, all of that will be deployed automatically without having to do anything other than just monitoring and seeing if it succeeds or if it fails. So that will take a little bit of time. So just for the sake of simplicity, I had one that was instantiated previously to show what steps go through the deployment. So what it will do, it will create the infrastructure that is necessary for running that telco network. It will do some configuration that are specific to a telco network. In this case, really, this is just specific for the multi-IP assignment or multis. And then it will instantiate each of the network function that we have in our network package. And that's as simple as that. So that's our goal, to help our customer get that simplicity and really increase the speed at which they have new features and new capability available for their own customers.
All right, we got to make it like more difficult for you to be able to do that. Like you're gonna have to, reverse your mouse buttons, wear a blindfold, and then do this again. That's a good test. That was a little too simple. And then there's a telco network to be utilized, just like that.
Yeah, and really, like, I know that sounds cool, but I think the CLI and the REST APIs are even cooler, and that's where our customers, especially the advanced user, are the most excited with, because you can actually build, right? So building on AWS becomes even more fun when you have a tool like Telco Network Builder, because you can just make so many cool things, and that's where the fun is. So.
Yeah. So would you say this is more so for the end user or like the telco provider?
So this is more for the CSPs, right? So this is communication service provider. So the like of Orange, Telefonica, Dish, Telstra, Spark New Zealand, etc. So it's for those network operator. It's to help them operate that network, right? So it's really for them.
So if it's for the network operator and we're simplifying things for the network operator, how do the consumers or the end users really benefit from this? Like I have my ideas, but I want to know from the professional here.
Yeah. So the network function. So each of those network function has a set of capability, right? So when there's a standard or when there's a new features or innovation that is made available by one network function provider, how do you make that available faster for the end customer? So this is where TNB helps those network operators. So the network operator will say, maybe I need to increase the ability to have a hologram prioritized versus like a voice call, right? Because a voice call doesn't need as much quality of service, but the hologram does more quality of service. So you would need maybe there's and here I'm going on a tangent, but there is feature and capability, let's say, at the signaling level. So maybe you need a new version of the AMF. Then you would ingest that network function into function package. You'll have a new version of it. And then you will go through an update of that network function. So that feature is available for the end customer.
Well, that's a great way to put it. I don't know what any other way to put it, but that sounds, as a consumer, because I don't think, I would ever want to be responsible for telecommunications, but enabling the telco providers the ease of expanding their networks or controlling their networks. It sounds like it's just adding additional functionality to their infrastructure, and in turn, we're benefiting it as consumers too. Why is telecom so cool?
We're trying to make it cool, but certainly.
And you're there in Barcelona. We all know that.
I'll be in Barcelona.
You at the conference too. The what's the conference called?
So it's the Mobile World Congress, and it will be from Monday to Thursday. I'll be most of the time at the booth. So people are interested in coming and seeing how TNB is being used, or if they want to see it, even try it, and I can guide them as well through it. If they want to also see how we do an end-to-end 5G network, and how we also, there's a really cool application, a cool holographic application that we're also showcasing. So it's certainly.
Is it a hologram of Brian and Kyle there in Barcelona with y'all?
You know what? Maybe we can do something like that. It wouldn't be impossible, but it's actually what we're going to be doing. There's basically a holographic application that will be running on a network that has been built by AWS.
That's really cool.
And you basically call a device via your phone, and you appear inside that device in 3D.
Crazy.
Just
to think, Brian, you could call me and I'd just appear.
I know. We just talked about it. It's just so simple. It just happens every day.
Right? No big deal. Eamon, thank you so much for your time today. Again, this whole telecommunications thing is so fascinating. And I just, got to drink from the fire hose this week to learn more about telco. And, I think this is going to be one of my little side projects that I learn more about.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting us to speak and share what we've been doing. And if there's any question, please don't hesitate. Always looking to also get feedback from customers and partners. So thank you.
All right.